So you want to learn how to do materials. Well, first of all, we need to make a material. So we right click here, we go create material up here. Sweet, I'm going to call this wood. Sweet, now what we want to do is, there are a bunch of different fields here. Albedo is the first one, and that's a color map, it's just regular color. But before I do that, I want to put the material onto this object. To do that, I grab and drag across. Sweet, cool. Now that you got that, we need to apply a color map because it's just pretty bland. So we grab this and we drag it up into this input field here. This is your main color texture, the main color map for it. In here, we could modify it if we want to, just different, give it a bit of extra shading and whatnot. But I'm going to leave that as white, as you normally would do. Next of all, we've got metallic. I've got a metallic map, but that didn't really work for me, so yeah, I would have to look into it a bit more. But anyways, metallic just affects how shiny everything is. And the smoothness also helps for the reflectiveness of an object. If it's got no smoothness, it's not going to reflect at all. Though it does do a little bit. Anyways, I'm going to leave that as black because mine is just a organic object, which is generally not reflective at all. In here, we've got albedo alpha and metallic alpha. I believe they're just different methods of rendering the same thing. Next of all, we've got the normal map, which is how the light bounces off an object. So if I chuck this normal map on here, we can see that it just looks a bit more realistic. You don't see any depth or anything, but it just kind of fills out the object a bit more. We can also change the strength of that just here. Generally 1 is fine. Sweet. Next of all, we've got the height map. I don't have a height map. I have a displacement map. You can get away with it. They're a bit of a different technology, but that's fine. Anyways, with this displacement map, we can see that it actually now has a bit of height in here. But as far as Unity is concerned, it's still a flat object. So that's a good thing to bear in mind. Also, you can crank it up. Obviously, I'm using displacement map, so I really want to keep that on the down low, just to keep it looking a bit. But it does give it a little bit extra on there. Next of all, we've got Occlusion, which is basically how an object hides an object. Dang it. How shading works. Anyways, here's the example that Unity gives, where you've got like this hood, and you want it to be shaded here, but because of the lighting and whatnot, it wouldn't. But artistically, you would want that. Or if say the material has got a bunch of crevices in it, and Unity still considers it a flat object, so you don't always get that correct. So this is a reason for it. Most things come with it. It's pretty light on performance and whatnot, so it's generally included. And so if I'm grab my ambient occlusion and put it into the occlusion map. Next is the detail mask, which does something. I believe it adds a little extra bit of detail to it if you're really up close. I've never figured it out, never had to, so yeah. Next of all, you got emission, which is how much light is produced from it. So if you want neon lights, this is what you'd have. And in here we've got a map, which we can give a black and white image to, and what is black is no emission, what is white is full emission. And we can also modify that. So if you've got a singular color, you might just want to do it in black and white. However, if you've got like multiple different colors, you can give it a colored emission map. So, and this, but bear in mind that this is pure green. So I've only changed the green slider on it. So changing red or blue or whatnot isn't going to affect it. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, next of all, we've got baked or real-time lighting. This is in terms of emission. Real-time is it generates the light in real time. Baked is it bakes it when you bake your lighting. Baked lighting tends to be a bit more fleshed out and whatnot. But if you got objects moving around, sometimes it doesn't update that. Anyways, generally baked is what you want. Tiling is just how much it tiles, and then you've got offset, which is just moving it left and right, or up and down, whatever works. I'm just going to leave that at 1, 1. Another thing to bear in mind is that you've got these little circles, and that's where you can actually just select what you've got. And I've got a bunch of things here, but I'm just going to go none for this emission, and then turn it off. Okay, next of all, we've got the secondary map. This is if you want something secondary to it. So I can attach my moss here, and now I've got moss on the ground. And if I did a cutout of that, I would actually, it would look a lot better and whatnot. And so that's just something that you can use. And you've got also a normal map for that moss, which gives it a little bit, which just goes on top of it and whatnot, which gives it a bit more detail. Also, we've got the tiling of it. So if I want, I could make my moss tile a whole heap. And now it just looks a bit better. and you got your offset for lining things up the way you like it. Next of all, you got the UV set, which is just stuff. I've never looked at that, sorry. Then you got specular highlights, which is just, I think it's all the tips and how much that they give a bit more illumination to give it a bit more of a realistic. So if you want a bit more of a matte look, you'd turn that off. And reflections as well, reflections, which I believe only matters if you're doing metallic. So here we see it's just pure black there, where if I add reflection, we get the kind of sun of the shine of the sun, which is it could be wanted. And then you got enable GPU instantiating, which is very much recommended for VRChat. And yeah, it's just I think it relies a bit more on the GPU on it, which helps it. And then you got double-sided illumination, which is something I've never looked into it. Anyways, we've got a bunch of different. Nope, not that one. We've got a bunch of different things here as well. I'm just going to create a new material so we don't mess up what I've got here. And I'm going to call this glass thing. And I've got caps lock on, great. Oh well. Anyways, here I'm going to click on cutout. And I'm just going to chuck this on here. So currently it's plain. Now I've got this kiwi transparent texture, which has only got, which it's got the kiwi image and the rest is transparent. And so if I was to have this on opaque, it would just go black. But if I got on cutout, I can now cut it out and actually have, the outside of an object. And we can change how closely it follows it. You can see around here that it shows a bit more black or kind of cuts it out if you go way too extreme. Obviously, I could tile this to make it look a lot better. Other than that, you've got fade, which I believe is just a faded version of cutout. Correct me if I'm wrong. Just play around with that. I've never used fade. And then you've got transparent, which allows you to have some transparency in your object, which is just pretty cool. In terms of other things to know for VRChat and specifically, you've got, you can go VRChat, mobile, and you've got Toonlit. This is loved for anime characters and whatnot. And this is VRChat's version because you're only allowed to use their shaders if you're using Android or for the Quest. If you were to want, another one that's very much like this, Pyomi, this is the Pro edition, but the Toon is free. And if you go opaque for that, this will allow you to have so many more features in terms of what you can do with it. There's just so many in here. I don't know half of them, but it's a good thing to look into. And you've got all your height map things. They're a bit of a different position and whatnot. And the more things you add, the worse it gets. But you've even got like the hue slider and whatnot. It's just so cool. Anyways, that's something I would look at if you're into that kind of thing. And yeah, that's all there really is for shaders. See you next time.